Hello, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Kmart, and I want to talk about some basketball. And today, we are talking about the Sacramento Kings and some questions that we have now for the Kings as they enter into a new season with a fair bit of sort of hope and optimism in the wake of the DeMar DeRozan trade in the offseason. So, kind of just introduce the point there. During the offseason, the Kings went out and they got DeMar DeRozan, a big name that the Kings hope will allow them to get back into contention for the postseason and, make the kind of deep playoff runs that the team have been hoping for since they've put together their current core. Now, the addition of DeRozan is obviously going to put the offense for the Kings in a better spot. And I'm going to go over this section kind of quickly because it's not the main point of this video, but it is worth talking about. The offense for the Kings almost certainly going to improve and be reliable for them, right? Last season, they were top 10 in the league in points, field goals made, field goal attempts, three-pointers made, three-point attempts, and assists. The team was very much an elite offense in terms of volume. The point that they could maybe stand to improve upon is their efficiency. They were 14th in the league in field goal percentage and 16th in the league in three-point percentage, which is still good, still pretty much in the top half of the league, but not quite keeping pace with their statistics in terms of, volume shooting compared to that efficiency. But adding someone like DeRozan is almost certainly going to improve upon that. Right, DeMar is a career 21.2 point scorer. He has shot 46.9% from the field over the course of his career, and he's averaged 20 or more points per game for basically the last 11 seasons, I believe. So over a decade of reliable scoring from DeRozan. You talk about what you add DeRozan to in terms of this core for the Kings. You've got De'Aaron Fox, who's coming off of a career high in terms of his scoring, 26.6 points per game. You've got Domantas Sabonis, who averaged a double-double last season, 19.4 points per game, along with a league-leading 13.7 rebounds per game. And, oh, by the way, he shot 59.4% from the field. So your two sort of star players had unbelievable seasons last year. You're adding DeRozan to that. Meanwhile, you're getting guys like Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter back from their injuries. Young players like Keegan Murray took pretty sizable steps forward over the last, let's say, sort of year and a half here, right? They've become a little bit more reliable. Some of the older veteran guys, a guy like Harrison Barnes, who was kind of getting up there, has moved on. So the Kings are replacing some of their older and maybe slower players with younger and slightly more reliable guys here, and you're adding DeRozan to that mix. So offensively, I'm pretty damn sure the Kings are going to be just fine, likely to stay in the top 10 in terms of their offense. The defense is going to be the defining question here for the Kings, though, because without that defense, deep runs into the postseason become significantly less likely. Now, the effort for the Kings last season was not fantastic. It wasn't catastrophic either, but it wasn't where they want it to be. The Kings were in the bottom half of the league in terms of their points, field goals, field goal percentage, three-pointers allowed, three-point percentage against, free throws, and free throw attempts allowed per game. So, obviously not where you would like to be. Overall, the team was still 14th in defensive rating in the regular season, which, is a slight positive there, but they would very much like to and almost certainly need to raise that defensive effort in order to be where they want to be in the postseason. And while DeMar DeRozan is a very big addition, I don't think it's controversial to say that he is far more valuable on the offensive side of the ball than the defensive one, right? He's not exactly known as a lockdown defender, or he's not known as a better defender than he is a scorer or an offensive playmaker. So DeRozan himself not likely to move the needle just as a singular man being added to the Kings, but if you look at what the Kings did add in the offseason, there is some cause for optimism here. Guys like Jalen McDaniels, Jordan McLaughlin, and Orlando Robinson all came over to the team in the offseason through trade or free agency. I'm not going to take a guess at how much time any of them get in their rotations, but these are guys who, at least in theory, could add size or length or, energy off the bench, what have you. Some of those sort of intangible benefits that could raise the team's overall level of defensive effort. It's kind of a stretch, but it is certainly a possibility. If we're looking for something a little more positive and a little more concrete from a statistical standpoint, we can look at the Kings in terms of their rebounding numbers, right? Led by Sabonis and those 13.7 rebounds per game, the Kings had a plus 1.5 rebounding differential on average in the regular season. So they averaged 1.5 more rebounds than they allowed to their opponents. They were top 10 in terms of total rebounds allowed to their opponents. Pretty good. Controlling the glass is often the key point or a first step to establishing or improving a team's defense overall, and the Kings already sort of seem to be there. To throw a couple more statistical categories out here, they were second in the league in terms of offensive rebounds allowed, so they allowed the second fewest, and they allowed the fewest second chance points of any team in the regular season, just 10.9 points per game in terms of second chance opportunities. So sometimes that stat can be misleading. Sometimes you don't give up offensive rebounds and second chance points because you're allowing the opposing team to score pretty often on their first attempt. But for the Kings, it's a solid indicator, right, of what they can do on the defensive end. But overall, if you look at the team in terms of their core, it's pretty much the same as it was last year, but adding DeMar DeRozan to that mix. And as I said before, DeRozan far more valued on the offensive side than the defensive. He may not move the needle all by himself on the defensive end. When that is the case for a team, when they don't bring in, one guy who's going to elevate the level of defensive play, the expectation becomes that the team as a whole must improve their sort of effort level across the board, right? They need to improve defensively as a unit instead of relying upon, one or two guys to get the job done for them. So that's what the Kings are going to have to do, and it's certainly something that they are capable of. It's just, I have more confidence in the Kings improving their offense with DeRozan than their defense, right? It's going to be a far easier path for the Kings to integrate DeRozan into their offensive scheme as opposed to making a roster-wide improvement on the defensive end. So that is going to be the big question for Sacramento. The offense will be fine. The offense was honestly fine for the most part last season too, but that did not get them that sort of postseason run that they were looking for. So we'll have to see what it is they do here, how much of an impact DeRozan has on the team as a whole, and whether they can make those adjustments. But well, what do you think? Do you believe that DeRozan is going to be enough to shift the Kings back into that sort of contender status? Do you believe they could be a top 4, top 6 sort of team in the Western Conference? Do you think that the defensive concerns are appropriately sort of sized here, let's say, right? Do you think that the defense is going to be something that the Kings could improve upon? Do you think perhaps it could drag them down over the course of the season? Where do you think the Kings end up in this upcoming campaign? But either way, please feel free to let me know what you think. But other than that, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you later.